David Myles, we are going. Welcome to the High Button podcast, as we like to call it. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad to see you survived Fiona. I know a lot of other people it was a tough go, but to be able to make it through the other side and I guess see the light of day, it's a good feeling to be here.
Man, it sure is. It sure is. It's actually kind of interesting just to be traveling east. Like I'm living in Fredericton, so to be coming east, you kind of get a sense of the storm a lot more.
Yeah.
Just my trip here, coming down Quinpool, Halifax, you're kind of like, wow, man, it's a serious storm. Every once in a while we forget where we live.
Yeah.
How
Mother Nature's real.
It's serious business, and when you're out on the ocean like that, like we are, it's intense, man. But it wasn't as in Fredericton. It was pretty mild. It definitely it was windy and crazy, but not like it was in Shediac, not like it was here, not like it was in PEI. I mean, PEI, crazy. Cape Breton, Newfoundland is tragic, man. It's full tragedy, So no, it's good to be out. It's good to be down here. I'm going to see a lot of friends. It's nice to be back.
Yeah, you can uplift some spirits around this part.
That's my goal. That's my job, always.
That's good. But no, you're right. Like seeing some of the photos on the internet, on Facebook and around, you're like, oh, I said it on the last podcast. It could always be worse. It's like I'm out back yesterday raking some leaves up in the front. I'm all miserable. And then I take a drive around the town and I see people with trees on the home. And I'm like, oh, Justin, stop complaining. Everything's fine.
That's right.
But yeah, it could always be worse. And once again, happy to have you here. You can uplift some of our listeners.
Thank you.
Big fan of your talent. You're a pretty talented individual. You know how to you know how to sing into a microphone, and you know how to entertain the general public. At what age did you go, David?
I started pretty young, man. Like I didn't start singing for a long time, but I grew up in a musical family. I'm the youngest of four boys.
Okay.
So big family. Lots of activity, everybody's playing piano. I had a really strict dad. So, and mom, but dad was particularly strict. So it was it wasn't a choice. Playing music was everybody did piano lessons.
Gotcha.
Everybody played another instrument. Everybody did this, And so there was music around the house. There was tons and tons of music, and dad directed musicals at the high school, at Fredericton High School. He was the guy who did the musical. So it was always happening. I'm being the youngest. I didn't even think of myself as the musician in the family, ever, really, until I was quite a bit older. I didn't think it was going to be my career. I always loved it. I knew I loved music. I basically always felt like I loved music more than anybody else in the world. I was like, no one can like it as much as me. I just listened to it constantly, but it wasn't a real career. Again, having strict parents, it wasn't like, oh yeah, you should be a musician. It was like, no, that's not a real job. You're going to be, do this. So my brothers are two of them have PhDs. One of them's a medical doctor. They're all doctors. So it's serious business. So just saying oh yeah, I'm going to be a folk singer. It wasn't really an easy call. I did a bunch of other stuff, but I always played music, and then just got to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm going to just do this. I'm going to try this out. I'm going to give this a real legitimate go. I had bought a guitar, started writing songs, and I was like, I love this. This is what I want to do. So I said, I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to make an album. That was 2003. So it's been almost 20 years. I mean, I just put up my 15th record. It's and with each record, I'm like, is it going to be the last one? When's the curtain going to close? You know what I mean? I'm just taking it as I can. I love it.
What did your old man do? You said he was strict, but he was in the musicals at school. What did he do?
Yeah, well, he directed the music. He was a biology teacher. He was a high school teacher.
I thought you were going to say military.
No, I know. It's funny because I was saying that. I was thinking a lot of people, especially here at Fredericton.
Yeah.
Obviously,
yeah.
It's kind of sometimes I run into military dudes and they're talking about their parents, and I'm like, yeah, it's funny. Maybe it is kind of similar, But yeah, he was just old school. High expectations, really, really high expectations. I think I don't resent it. It was good. He was a great, dad, and he was strict, and he just wanted the best out of us, and he knew he was the type of person that knew that you could always do more than you think you can. But music wasn't one of those things, You got to get a real job. That's not. But it was. But you kind of get that. But the basis of his education, his style was more your potential is always way higher than you think it is. You'll put the bar here. I'm going to put the bar here, and it was kind of like that. That's how he raised us. And my brothers are crazy. My brother Sean was on the main page of the New York Times this morning. He just texted me, yeah, man, for his Apple research in the Valley in Wolfville. New York Times this morning. It was crazy. Awesome. I'm so proud of my bros. Like, they're great. They're great. But a lot of it had to do with the fact that, like, was no joking around at home, like when it came to that stuff. So yes.
Holy smokes, man! The genes on your dad. Oh, he's breeding you guys right.
He was driven, man. I think. I mean, it's funny that we're getting into this, but I think part of it was just like he grew up poor, youngest of 8, no money, and he was determined that he was going to turn it around. You know what I mean? Like, he was, not that we were going to become rich, but that we were going to be like well educated and well suited to take on the world. That was he was just determined. He was absolutely focused, and to the point where it was like kind of intense, you know what I mean? But it was, I kind of get it now. You know, I'm like, he's youngest of 8. They had nothing. They had no dough. You know, I mean, he had no security. And so he was like, I got one generation. A lot of people feel this way, right? Like, a lot of people who are real strict is because they came from a situation with high stakes. Yeah. They're like, I'm not going to repeat this. This is going to be the generation that we change this, you know? And he didn't go on and become, he did what, you know, he became a teacher and then focused on his students and us, you know? So it's neat.
I always found when I started this podcast, it was tough for me to go into social situations and they go, Justin, what are you doing for a living? I go, I'm starting a podcast. And that wasn't really the most satisfying thing for other people to hear. Because, you know, when you say I'm being a lawyer, I'm going to try to be a doctor. I'm going to try to be an astronaut. I'm going to, you know, and then you go, okay, I'm David Myles. I'm going to be a singer, but my brothers are doctors and lawyers. Was that ever tough at the beginning to try to convince people about your talent?
Come on, big time, man.
Was it?
Forever.
Yeah.
I mean, when I told my parents, and for a lot of people, again, because I think that, like, I did other things. Like, I did go to university. I studied political science. I even did like an internship. I even did my LSATs. I was gonna go to law school for the sake, like, it was all kind of set up. But it just got to this point. It actually was one of my brothers. I called my brother and I was like, this was before I did my LSATs. I was gonna take a job in politics, and I called my brother and I was like, man, I think I'm going to stay in Toronto. I was working at the Ontario legislature. And I was like, man, I think I'm going to stay in Toronto. I was 22. And my brother is a doctor. He called, I'm talking to him. I'm like, I'm 90% sure I'm going to do this, you know? And he's like, listen, man, you said when you were in high school, you were going to take a year off and try music. You didn't. You said when you finished university, you were going to take a year off, try music. You didn't. Now you're telling me that you're going to take this job. He's like, listen, I went right through. He became a medical doctor, 25 years old. He was already practicing, you know, really young. And he was like, I didn't take any time off. I've definitely thought about how it wouldn't have changed that much had I taken a year off somewhere in there and tried something else. You know what I mean? He's like, now's your time. And I went from like being kind of like, I'm going to stay in Toronto, work this type of work, probably go to law school, you know, maybe work for an NGO or do something like that, do legal work or whatever. I didn't know, but it was going to be like policy, even though I was obsessed with music. Like, I was writing songs, I was playing open mics, I was in. But I just couldn't quite imagine that it was like a viable career. And my brother just kind of gave me this slap and was just like, bro, this is your chance. Like, now you take it. And so I was like, I think you're right. I took a year. Made my first record, did my LSATs, so I could like please I was like, don't worry, mom and dad, doing my LSATs. Made my first record, and then started touring that record. Made my second record, made my third record, and then just like was like, oh my goodness. So it's like, much to my parents' chagrin, they came around, of course. Like they're great. My parents are great. My dad's no longer with us, but my you know, they were great. My dad was a great dad. My mom, and they really did come around. They were at all my shows. But no doubt, man, for that first little bit, when you're going around and being like, yeah, you know what, I decided I'm not going to go to law school. I'm going to write folk songs. I'm going to tour the country with my guitar and just me and my guitar and just like sleep on people's couches. And that's what I did, man, for years.
I'm thinking of that movie where the guy carries the cat around.
Yeah, man, that was it. The Coen Brothers movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like not unlike that. Like, I mean, it was honestly, and had it not been from coming from a huge family, I wouldn't have had nearly as many couches to sleep on. I knew so many people around the country because I came from a smallish town, Fredericton. Everybody seemed to know each other. A lot of them my dad taught. So it felt like every town I went to, I could call someone and be like, hey, man, do you mind if I crash? I'm the youngest of the Myles kids. You think I can crash on your couch?
Just dropping the family name. I'm the youngest. Little sympathy for the youngest.
Exactly,
Yeah.
man. So that's how it was. So yeah, of course, dude. It's hard to tell people that that's what you're doing, but it's fun to see them coming around. It's fun to try to convince people that I like a good challenge, man. It's the same as starting a podcast, right?
Yeah.
Best thing you can have in some ways is someone say, "No, you can't." Then you're like, "Let's go."
Yeah.
That's fun. It's kind of fun. Like resistance. If you don't have anything to work against, then what are you doing?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I find at that level, it's you versus yourself. Like, I never, honestly, believe it or not, had someone go, you can't do it. Everyone, yeah, you can do it, Justin, go for it. I never had that, but at the point where it's like, it's you versus yourself. Okay, how do I get this next guest? Okay, now what do I talk about with this next guest? How do I get, it was always me versus myself at that point. But getting to those points, it was 100% commitment. When you talk about taking your LSATs, obviously you're studying and not writing songs. What was that point for you where I got to leave this studying to be a lawyer in the LSATs? When was that point of leaving it behind and just going 100% music?
It was pretty clear. Like I think I knew it before I even did.
What year?
This was 2004. Like right when I finished.
Yeah.
Right, it was 2004, 2005. Right when I was making that first record. I would say, in some ways, I almost remember. Like I remember. So basically, I had been a music obsessive. I played trumpet, played school band, was always into music, heavy. Again, didn't think it was going to be my career. Didn't know how I'd play trumpet professionally. Then I lived in China. My third year university, I did an exchange and lived in Hangzhou, China. I studied Mandarin for a year. Had no friends, tons of time by myself. Bought a $30 guitar and just started playing it. And I was like, wow, I guess I just didn't see how I'd be a trumpet player professionally. And as soon as I got that guitar and started singing and writing it, I wrote my first song in like a week. Like as soon as I got that guitar, started learning 3 chords, I was like, I turned it into a song. And then I was like, oh, buddy, this is what I love. I think I knew almost at that point that I was like, there's no way that I like anything as much as I like the feeling of creating a song. That's when it all... I just was in denial for a couple of years, if you know what I'm saying.
I got you. I know what you mean. Yeah.
And then it turned into, me kind of leading people on, thinking I was going to take this job. But ultimately, in the back of my mind, again, like every bit of free time I was writing these songs. It was probably 2004, put that record out, did my first shows where I was affirmed that what I believed, what I felt, could actually turn into something, which was like those first times when you play your songs for an audience. You know what I'm saying? When I loved writing songs, but you can love writing songs and then perform them for people and go, yikes. But what happened was I performed for people and people were like, hey, that's pretty cool.
In China?
I did do a couple shows in China.
No way.
Happened in Toronto. But then once I put that record out and really hit the road,
yeah.
It's after university, a couple years later. But even in China, I did a couple of shows. So my first time performing my songs was definitely there. Definitely there,
no
for
way.
Sure, because it was a totally safe. I didn't know anybody. It wasn't like my dad was in the crowd. It wasn't like my brothers were in the crowd or my friends.
Yeah, was that intimidating factor?
No, not at all. It was like there's nothing to lose, right? Like you could just really.
They don't even know what I'm saying.
Exactly, it's great. It was open. So I think sometimes that's important. Is to have that experimentation. But it was really a little later on. When I started doing my first shows where I would have even 10, 15 people in a kind of quieter environment where I would be kind of telling stories, playing guitar, talking in between songs, talking about where songs come from, singing those songs, that I was like, oh, this is a thing. This is a career. Like I can entertain people like this. It was like, I can write songs, but then there's this entertainment thing that I love. I mean, that was the other piece of it, is that, again, I'm the youngest. Like, I needed to entertain my family, or I wasn't getting fed. Like I wasn't getting any attention at all.
That's funny.
I think it's like super. I was just talking to Steve Patterson, the comedian. He was
yeah.
And he's the youngest. Jeremy Dutcher is the youngest of 4 boys. Like so many people in the entertainment industry that I know are the youngest of these big families, because like how else are you going to get attention, man? There's like, so all of a sudden I got in front of people. I got in front of people and I was like, I kind of like this. I think you know what I mean. I can do this.
Was there stage fright at the beginning, or did that come natural?
None.
That's the weirdest thing in the world.
That was the part that was not really. I had played in cover bands, so it wasn't the first time on stage. I had been on stage, but again, singing my own songs. I had played in party bands and rocked people. This was a different thing. This was like talking about my feelings, talking to 15 people in a coffee shop in Calgary. You know what I'm saying? Telling stories, and all of a sudden, but I'm like, no, this is working. This is something. This is like this is entertainment in a interesting way. Let's move forward. So then it just became doing shows. Then it just became like making records, doing shows.
How did the maneuvering of finding an agent and representation come about? Are you going to these coffee shops in Calgary by yourself? Hey, David Myles, do you want to come do this? At what point do you go, oh, okay, I can't keep track of all this?
It was a few years later.
Yeah.
So there was good 3 or 4 years of booking my own, calling bars.
Did you like that part of it?
I am so glad I did it.
Why?
Just because I learned.
What did you learn?
I learned so much about the industry. I learned about that you're not going to get given anything. Like it's not, you have to create the audience. It's an exchange. It is a business, and there has to be an audience that's interested in what you do, that pays a certain amount, that goes and see you do that thing on stage. And if you kind of jump those hoops, you see what I'm saying, and you get put in front of big audiences,
you'll fail.
Well, sometimes it works, but it's important.
Actor.
Exactly. Sometimes things happen too quick. For me, it was like I was so appreciative of that. I didn't love calling bars. It's hard. It was humiliating. Tons of the times I'd show up to the bar and they'd be like, "Who? Oh man!" Like I had guys being like, "Oh, no one." I'd literally have driven like 8 hours, show up at the bar, and the guy's like, "No one's gonna show up tonight." And I was like, "Right on, man. Let's go." But at the same time, you do learn. Then you're like, okay, let's get people here. Let's go. Let's have a good show. And then you win those people over slowly, and you do figure out, like, I got to be good at this thing. Managers I love my manager. I've had the same manager for 15 years. She's insane. She's amazing. Sherry Jones. She manages Corey Sampson and Joel Plaskett, Mo Kenny. She's a dream. Super close. But managers, they manage interest. They don't create interest. You know what I'm saying? It's probably similar in sports. You still have to be able to perform. You are the driver of the interest in what you do. And so I think that was important for me to have those years and kind of go, okay, this is what a show looks like. This is how money comes in. This is how tickets are sold, or the door at that point. It's just door deals and whatever. And then just getting a sense of that. A few years later, I had enough going on. I had done enough tours that I started contacting agents, sending like handwritten letters. I mean, it's crazy to think how much stuff's changed. And then Sherry came, and then I moved back to Nova Scotia, started making a career here in Nova Scotia, met Sherry Jones, had a couple songs that did pretty well. And then we started working together. Then you got an agent and all those things, which was great. I mean, they've been a huge part of, I've had a great agent for all those years. But again, like those early years, I don't resent them. In fact, I'd almost say, like, if you're not willing to do that, then I don't know if you're really going to be cut out for it in some ways. Like, it's important to kind of get a sense of the backbone doesn't change whether you got an agent or a manager there. The essence of what you're doing is still showing up, entertaining people, creating demand, hopefully enough demand to sell tickets.
Yeah. I asked Classified the same question. When the money starts to come in and the success starts to come in, was there ever a point in your head that you kind of thought, ooh, maybe I am kind of comfy. I got this nice king size bed. I have, time to relax, and maybe that motivation will go away. Did you ever think about that? Obviously it didn't go away, but was there ever a point like, ooh, maybe there will be a point where I'm just not as hungry?
I've just never been... I don't know. That's a good question. I don't think it certainly wasn't... I never was in a position where I was financially comfortable enough to just cool my jets.
Put your feet up.
That just hasn't happened. It'd be nice. But I used to think, I think what's really changed is that I used to think that's what I wanted. I used to think that that's what it was all about, especially when I started getting closer to it, when it started to happen, when I started to, like with Classified and I, when we had the big hit. I was like, whew, buddy. There was moments where that was going to pop into the top 40 in America. You add zeros to your checks at that point. You know what I mean? Like, it starts to get serious. I remember being like, ooh, buddy, like, this is going to go and we're going to be on Easy Street.
Did you know right away
that song was going to go?
In the studio?
We were fired up.
You knew right away?
We were fired up. I think we thought it was special.
You didn't know it would go to that?
No one expected the timing of that. There's so many other elements. There's so many other factors. Did we think we had something special? I think, for sure. I think we thought we had something special almost from the get-go of he and I working together. I thought Day Doesn't Die was special. I thought that track was great. I thought it was almost like when we first started working together, and we're still super close, was that more like, oh, we're going to do something great, because we were covering, between the two of us, we were covered so much ground, and we were so different, but we loved being in the studio. We loved the creative part so much, man. Like, we just loved the excitement around when a song starts to happen. No one, to this day, no one gets as fired up as Luke does when a song's going good. And he says the same thing. Like, that's what we're jumping up and down. We're high-fiving. We're like partying in the studio when stuff's going good. Not everybody's like that. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. Yeah, maybe I'll sleep on it and see you tomorrow. I'm like, sleep on it? I can't. I'm too fired up, man. And Luke's the same way. Classes just goes and goes. So, no, I think we knew we had something special. But yeah, through all that, there was moments where I was kind of going, yeah, maybe we do this again, or maybe I'll start writing pop songs, and then I'll just not have to work or whatever. Then I realized, probably just because it didn't happen in that way. Then I realized, especially during the pandemic, where I couldn't tour, all I wanted to do was make music. I was like, well, what am I doing? I mean, I picked this because I love it. So do I really just want to retire? Like, am I really trying to build this thing where I just hopefully get in, get out? Now I'm like, no, man, I want to go like Willie Nelson. I want to be like 90. I want to still love it at 90. I still want to be doing shows like Symphony Nova Scotia, like I'm doing this weekend, like with when I'm like 85, That's more my game now. It's more like, no, let's keep the passion. Like, even if it means slow and steady, let's find ways to stay engaged. Rather than feeling like so overwhelmed or so much pressure that I want to quit.
Yeah. That's my biggest thing with this is it can become a little bit repetitive, and I don't struggle to find passion in it, but I struggle to find new ways to challenge myself. Do you know what I mean?
That's it.
When you say Willie Nelson, you want to be doing this at 90, it's like I want to be doing the same thing, but I still need to be able to find ways to I need to find struggle in order to find happiness. I remember when we first started the live stream, I couldn't connect to the internet for a second to stream these hockey games, and parents were calling me saying, "What are you doing? We paid you for this, yada yada." And at the time, I hated it, but then I came back home. I'm like, no, I need that, because now I got to figure out how to do it. That's right. And now we're doing tournaments, 150 games a weekend, and we're killing it. But it's those struggles that I seek to find, and if I don't have them, I'm toast.
I think you're right, and I think it's about also seeing them as such. It's hard to see them as such when you're in them.
I didn't see them for the first 5 years. Like, well, I just get so frustrated.
Of course.
I'd be like, what? I got to do that? I don't. And then you just kind of switch, like, oh, wait, that's good, because that means you're growing when you figure it out. It takes a bit to figure that lesson out, but
it does. Yeah. And that's the kind of perspective I just want to be able to keep in my mind.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to keep in my mind all the time. It's just like how to stay fresh, how to stay in that growth mentality. And then it means challenging yourself. That means, like, as you said, like through the pandemic, so many different things came my way. Yeah. But then when I started to overcome some of them, started making music from home, for instance, I was like, now it opened up this world that was extremely exciting to me. So, cool. I'm in a different place than I was 4 years ago entirely.
Wicked. Mm-hmm. Writing songs, I'm not going to lie and sit here and say I know everything about it. I know nothing about writing songs and stringing a guitar. I'm jealous. I wish I had the talent, but what's the process like with you? Is it 4 a.m.? Is it in the morning? Is it after 4 coffees? Is it right now? Like, when does the mood strike in order to write?
Yeah, it's kind of, I usually don't when I'm touring. Like, there's certain times where I don't tend to write, okay. I would say. Like, and that's when I'm in this zone, where I'm like getting ready to tour, when a record's just getting put out, that kind of thing. I would say that's a time when I'm not necessarily right there, like, creatively. I like to give myself space.
Like, that's what I've learned. Away.
Even in my house.
Oh,
even just space in terms of time. Like, often my best writing time is like, kids are off to school, 10 o'clock, I've had a coffee, maybe a couple coffees. I know that I have this like window ahead of me before anybody's home again. I got this like 6-hour window. Gold. During the pandemic, I had the kids, during the first of the pandemic, I had the kids home with me. My wife's got a regular job. Then like we would like 5:30, we'd switch out, and I knew I had like a 5-hour window at night. I had a little shed in my backyard.
Okay.
I'd pop back there. Most productive days of my life, man.
Oh yeah.
Because as soon as I went out there, I was like, I've done my due diligence. Like, I have been with the family all day.
Yeah.
It's a pandemic. No one's stopping by. I'm not doing anything else.
Stop.
Let's go. And honestly, it was amazing. It was amazing. In fact, I've realized more and more that now that's going to be the challenge moving forward. Is just to always make sure that I create that space, as in no interruptions. If it means going out into the woods or whatever, that's good too. Like for me, it's more just distractions, just being able to loosen my mind, get into the periphery, get into digging in the dirt a little bit, experimenting, singing out loud where there's no one around. You can't be self-conscious. You can't be thinking there's people in the van. It's kind of hard, right? A lot of it comes out of just mumbling in the air, singing in the air, tons.
Just whistling to it.
Whistling, singing, whatever. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's actually that might be something. Then you take it a step further and then you kind of it's almost like you see something in the distance and then and that's the exciting part. You're like, oh, I see it. I see there's a song. It's over there, but now I got to take my machete and I got to cut away all the brush until I get there. That's a bit of the work part. But when you see that light, when you know that there's often it will be a line or whatever, but the line then is oh, what if it's a song about this or the song, or you get the vibe or the groove of the song and you have a sense of something larger. That's so friggin' exciting. It's the most exciting moment that for me, that was it. That was the first time it happened. It doesn't go away. Every time.
I gotcha.
Every time I feel the song coming, or I think I got it, or I'm like, oh yeah, I got it. There's something here. It's the ultimate high, man. I feel great. If it hasn't happened for a little while, everybody in my house knows.
How do they know? You're grumpy?
I'm just get out of my way, man. I'm just kind of out of sorts.
Girls take the bus to school. I'm not driving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Good stuff, man. Well, I saw you won an acoustic album of the year.
Instrumental.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Is there something about that just being alone and a guitar and your voice? Wait, instrumental.
Yeah, no voice. So basically, it was just guitar. Although to be honest, I did use my voice to sketch out the melodies. So in fact, the process was kind of similar in that I would sit with my guitar and kind of be playing chords, and then kind of going, okay, what? But I play trumpet. Then I would then take out the vocal part, play it on horn, play it on guitar.
Well, that kind of ruins my question. Not really, but my question was, I thought it was acoustic. I thought I read acoustic. My apologies. But the simplicity of not having anything else but a guitar in your voice. No, do you love that aspect of it?
I do, but I do. I like it from a performance perspective. I love that intimacy on stage between the song and the people. But when it comes to records, I love making music with my friends. I love quite the opposite. Even during the pandemic, what made those records special was just that, in fact, I was creating them in my house, but then sending them to a drummer who now lives, in La Have, who's in Toronto, and a pedal steel player who lives in Nashville, Leith, who lives here in Halifax, all these different people that were playing on the tracks, and then they would send me the tracks back. It's the best.
So
man.
You would layer them?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And then I would kind of put them together and arrange them. And then Josh, who was the drummer and the guy who mixed the record and a huge part of the record, would basically make it sound super pro.
I gotcha.
He'd put the bow on it, But no, man, I like writing songs. I like playing them by myself, but I like writing songs to be played by a group of people. Nothing like it for me. It wouldn't be the same. I'm a music nerd.
Yeah.
I love just jamming with my buds. Nothing compares to it.
Oh man, I wish I had the talent just to get in a garage and just do it. Have you seen the movie? Martin Scorsese directed it, The Last Waltz by the band.
Yeah.
And they're in San Francisco, and it's right before this famous theater shuts down. That is to this day one of my favorite live performances ever. I think it was in 1969 actually in San Francisco. The band, most of them are dead now, unfortunately, but that's kind of where I felt. I was just growing up. I was just hip hop, whatever. And when I got out of college, I kind of started to expand my mind a little bit and go, there's other types of music out there. And I was in a garage in my buddy's shed, and we were having some rum and cokes. And the next thing you know, he chucks this on, and my mind exploded. I wasn't even on drugs, just liquor. And I was watching this, and I was just like, what the hell is this? These guys are going nuts. The guy in the drums, Levi,
Levi Helm,
Dixie down.
Amazing.
I was just, anyways, I'll never forget that. And ever since that day I saw that DVD, my mind just kind of exploded into exploring other genres of music, and it's incredible.
Well, that's it. I mean, I think the reason why that is so legendary, why the band, it's funny because I was just telling my kids, I'm like one of those guys, the dads that drives around, listens to satellite radio and teaches the kids important lessons on music. But I'm like, the band, like we're talking. But part of the reason why the band is so enjoyable to listen to is that there's multiple singers. They're great at each of their instruments. They're absolutely deluxe, but they sound like a band. They are playing with each other. They are kind of the ultimate band, right? Like it's not just one singer who's sitting and everybody's just learning the parts. It's this band. It's this like amorphous thing where you can tell they're jamming together. As you can see on Last Waltz, it's very special to watch because you're like, it's not going to be the same tomorrow night. It wasn't the same last night. Every night's a little different. Everybody's bringing their feelings to the table. Everybody's engaging in this art of listening, engaging, interacting. It's incredible. It's incredible. It's like, so it's a unique live experience. And when the musicianship's really high, you get magic.
Is it more difficult to perform when there's more people on stage? Because I'm assuming when more people are on stage, everyone has to be in sync. What's your magic number? 3, 4?
Well, I mean, I often tour with 3, but I've been getting pretty into big groups.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, like I did a show last year with 10. Loved it.
Oh, yeah?
Loved it, man.
How long did it take to perfect the performance?
Not too long. It takes a lot of organization beforehand, and it takes, you kind of you have to know what you're doing. But my big thing now is like this idea of like, and this guy gets into, you talk a lot about sports, obviously, too, but like, it's this idea of how much direction is too much direction. What structure do you need, and how much do you need to let people breathe? It's like coaching, right? It's like coaching on a team. You got to be able to throw plays at people, but you also need to give people room to play their game.
You got to let Crosby do what he does. You can't cut.
You can't control those elements. You know what I'm saying? So it's so important. Like with a band, I think, and I'm learning this over time. And also, I grew up in school bands. It's like, okay, we got 10 people, so we got to have some sort of like structure, or the wheels are going to fall off. But how do we make it sound fresh? How do we make it sound so when Leith is soloing, it's Leith's time to go? You know what I'm saying? When it's a guitar player, so it's that we are a flexible. My thing right now is like, how do you make a band bigger, but without losing that instinctive kind of impulsive ability to adjust on the spot, on the fly, to be able to react quickly. It's super exciting. 3 people, you can, if you've played with them for a long time, you can adjust. You can make things, you start playing quiet, everybody will get quiet. But you get 10 people, how do you get that same responsiveness? It's fascinating. It takes a long time, but I love the challenge.
Well, that's what it goes back to what we were just talking about, finding these challenges.
Finding the challenge. And that's kind of been one of my things. And I love that because, of course, then from the audience perspective, you get this incredible thing where you're like watching 10 people or 50. I'm playing with the orchestra on the weekend with Symphony Nova Scotia. I mean, there's going to be 65 of us on stage. That's a crazy thing. How do you do that? Well, there's a conductor that keeps things in line, but then you got to also be able to be part of it too. You're in a ship together. So if I try to like commandeer the ship, if I try to just go rogue, and it doesn't work, man. You're all in it together. You gotta. So it's cool.
Yeah, it sounds cool. If you can make it work, like if you guys can all be in sync, it sounds like a really cool thing.
That's it, man. And then the audience feels something like big, right? They feel this like these big moments. Because things are coordinated and everybody's moving in the same direction. Yeah. Just like when a great play happens, right? Like when things are, it's not just one person. Like you're watching everything. You're good at
you're like a math teacher helping me. Like 5 hockey sticks, 4 hockey sticks. What's the? You're speaking my language.
But you know what I'm saying? Like when things are moving down the ice and it's coordinated, you're like, this is better than a fast break. It's better than a fast break. Terms. You know what I'm saying? Hockey's not even my sport, bro. I don't know crap about hockey. I can't even skate. I'm trash.
Well, I appreciate the help. When I get my tutors growing up, they'd be like, all right, Justin, you got 4 sticks here, 7 pucks there. I'm like, what?
That's good.
That's good, though. You've won a lot of awards. Congratulations.
Thanks.
I've always wondered about the ego when winning awards. I've never won an award for this, but hockey, sure. But how do you, like, if you win an award, do you have to put your ego in check? I heard Jamie Foxx said once he won an Oscar for something, and he's like, I don't even want to look at it. I don't want to touch it because when I touch it and I look at it, I start to talk like I'm British and I'm royal, and just that I just buy a couple range. He just doesn't even like it. I've always wondered about that, being a performer and winning and getting that accolade from your peers. Did that ever, I don't want to say affect you, but was there ever a point of winning that you go, okay, great, but now let's get back to work?
I think it's like the big thing is like I'm a future oriented person. So, like, I'm thinking about the next thing.
Okay.
That's the most important part for me. I'm also not going to sit here and go, like, I hate winning awards. It's great.
Yeah.
Like, winning the Juno this last year was amazing for me because it was at a time where I didn't expect to win a Juno. I thought I didn't know I was in that conversation. I kind of imagined my career looking a little different. I'd moved to Fredericton. have 2 older kids. I was entering a new stage of my life, trying to make records in a different way. And then all of a sudden, the record wins a Juno. That's very affirming. It's affirming because you're like, you go out on a limb. I was going out on a limb making an instrumental record, going out on a limb moving to Fredericton, going out on a limb making a record from myself, like
taking a
sending
risk.
These tracks. All of these things were risks. So when you win an award like that, it's an affirmation that, like, you know what, you can trust your gut. But the challenge is then not to look at that award and go, those were great days. You know what I'm saying? Like, ooh, man, like just one more and it's just not how it works. It's all about the songs. You just got to remember that it's all about the songs. Like, you got to get back to the core, the main thing, which is the songs. No songs, no shows, no awards, no nothing. You know what I mean? So if that distracts you from the songs, it's just like Jamie Foxx, if it distracts him from his craft of, like, is it going to make him a better actor? Or is it going to make him, of course, he's saying, I don't want to think about it too much because I'm focused on being the best at what I do. I think that's the challenge with those kind of things. With awards, like, you want to be able to look at them and go, great, appreciate it. That feels great to be affirmed, and especially from your own peers.
Yeah.
But, like, what's the main thing here? The main thing is I got to be able to write a song tomorrow that makes me feel good, that I'm excited about, because can't live in the past.
Well said.
I
like that. Have you seen moments in the industry? It happens in hockey a lot where things can happen to guys and they think they're all that, and then they just don't work ananymore. And then the next thing you know, they don't play hockey anymore. In the music industry, is it kind of similar?
They're so similar, man.
Is it?
I mean, that's why I love sports. It's like I don't think I've ever loved sports so much as I do now. And I was a Sports Illustrated kid. Like,
oh yeah.
Like I grew up as a basketball obsessive, and then got into snowboarding and stuff and did other things. And then I've come back as an adult to basketball. And I watch it every night now. Like I'm listening to satellite radio on the way here. I'm listening to preseason interviews and media day yesterday. I'm all in. All in.
OG. I read a book, took a walk on the beach. He said they asked him what your favorite thing for summer was.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. I love what happened yesterday. I mean, it was just media day is ridiculous, but it's fun.
It's great.
But part of it is seeing how, because it's so challenging. Sports is so challenging. It is so demanding. There's so much pressure on these athletes, and they have to do it night after night. And there's so much criticism when they don't. I mean, it makes music feel soft. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, if Russ Westbrook has a bad night, everybody hears about
Stephen A. Smith, he's despicable. What's he doing? He's making $43 million a year. What's he doing?
It's amazing. And my daughter's part of this now. Like, she's watching these games. My oldest daughter, and we both watch it, but particularly my 10-year-old now. We're watching everything right now, and she got introduced to Stephen A. last year for the first time, and she was like, "Who is this guy's amazing?" And he's like so harsh. But the point being is that the great ones, they actually handle it. They find ways to continue. They find ways to refocus on their game despite all the other distractions, despite all these other things. And sometimes for a really long time, like long careers. You look at Roger Federer, you look at LeBron, we're talking about a lot. I mean, right now we're in the heyday of sports for long careers. I'm fascinated by that. Fascinated by it because what is it? It's not only physical. It's about mental engagement too. It's about feeling the passion for the game and interest in the game, and the physical element. How do you maintain your your health to be able to play. So I'm super into the parallels between sports and music, mostly from from a pressure perspective, from an engagement perspective, and from the excellence perspective. I love watching it. We all do. That's why we watch it. When you see the pressure on, when the lights turn on, when the pressure is on, certain people get better.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That is a magical thing to watch. It's why we watch sports. It's when Michael Jordan, that's why he's a legend. When he got the ball, he wanted the ball in the last second. LeBron wants the ball. John Morant wants the ball. And the likelihood of it going in doesn't go down, it goes up. That's magical, man. The free throws at the end of a game. Like, I'm looking at that going, don't give me the ball. Like, that's my nightmare, dude. But it's so fun to watch. And it makes my job feel like pretty chill. It's helped me.
That's good.
I get so much inspiration from these athletes.
Yeah.
From just being like, look at how they can maintain themselves through these extremely stressful situations and through criticism and everything else. Like, we talk about the shortcomings of athletes all the time, them getting in trouble. And I'm like, yeah, but how about we talk about like how amazing they are? It's crazy what they
superhumans.
They really are, and the dedication to what they do is amazing. So I'm all in, man. All in on the basketball. This year's gonna be big. I think we're driving down to Boston, going to see some games of the Gardens.
Oh yeah,
bringing the kids down.
How the Celtics looking this year?
Celtics are looking pretty good.
Okay.
Well, they lost their coach. This coach got suspended.
I heard about that.
So that's going to be an interesting thing. And Williams is out with an injury. Their big man. So it's not looking as good as it was 3 weeks ago for the Celtics. But they're a great team. Tatum's amazing. Jaylen Brown's amazing. You know what I mean? Like, they got depth. They're good. Yeah. And if they're both playing great, they're a great team. You know what I mean? But I just loved. I was thinking about going down to see the Miami game because I actually love Miami too. Like, I like a lot of different teams. I like a lot of different. I'm just happy to be watching high level basketball. So,
yeah.
So I'm thinking about bringing the kids down and seeing some games, just seeing it in person, just because it's so exciting.
I did see one basketball game in my life. The Raptors in Toronto, and it was great. Carmelo Anthony played. It was the Knicks that were in town. It's more of a show. It's an entertainment thing rather than hockey where it's just the game and intermission. But every time there was a timeout, there's some music, there's cheerleaders.
That's right.
It was a big show, and I didn't mind it. It was great. It wasn't the best game, but like, I was just amazed on the production level of a live event. I've never seen
the pace
that
is
before.
cool, and it's quite different from TV. I think my kids would dig it. Again, it's kind of a dream of mine to be able to go down to one of those games. So now I'm thinking, it's just more because I'm watching so many games during the year. It's pretty fun. And there's a few other musicians that are pretty. I don't know if you know Renee Smith, who sings. She's actually touring with Classified this fall. She's opening the tour, and Renee sings with me quite a bit. Renee knows everything about basketball. She could be she could be an announcer and analyst, no problem. She's insanely she goes deep. It's awesome. So it's pretty nerdy, but I think ultimately it gives me a lot of inspiration just for my own career and keeping my own stuff together, especially as you see them getting older, having kids.
Yeah.
Being parents, trying to manage a lot of different things. I love that.
It allows you to focus on something else other than your career. It gives you a little excitement. All right, I'm going to put the notepad away, the guitar away. I'm just going to watch LeBron dunk on some people.
I got no stake in the game. I don't even go for a team because, in fact, like, I know that sounds like the most unsportsmanlike thing. You got to go for it. I'm like, I don't want to add the stress. I don't want to be I'm just like, I want to see a great game.
So you don't gamble?
Don't gamble. No, I don't. It's funny because last year I don't. But it's funny because last year I got so into the game and I started to know the teams pretty well. At least, and I called Miami Golden State in the finals. I was pretty darn close. Miami lost by a hair to Boston.
Yeah.
But I called that in like April, and I was like, man. And there was a lot of other teams. Phoenix was looking really good in the West. Like, that wasn't the obvious choice. And I was like, man, I probably should have. Like, especially as I was getting closer.
Could have won some money.
Yeah, but I haven't gone there. It's funny that you mentioned that because I was driving down today listening to the radio, and I was like, man, I'm starting to get pretty into this. Maybe
it's just one bet a year. You just predict the finals.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Yeah, that could be my speed because it is a fun thing to predict that far out. I don't have a prediction yet for this year. I got to see who's actually on the court when the season starts, but I'm excited about it for sure.
I hope the Bucks make a little bit of a run because Lindell Wigginton's there, and he was over here a couple weeks ago, and that guy, man, he's just so excited. You could, because he's still fresh to the NBA world, and you could tell when he was talking. He's just on. He's like, yeah, like, you know, they cook for me. If I need a suit tailored, they'll do it. Like, he was just amazed by everything that the NBA brings to him, and you could tell that sparkle was in his eye, and he was just hungry to stay there.
Nothing more exciting to me right now.
Yeah.
Watching Lindell last year during the playoffs, just seeing him on that bench, cheering everybody on, and then him coming up, scoring he had a big game, 18 points in one of the games. You know, he is a star, and he's a great friend of Reenie's. Reenie knows Lindell really well. They're really close, and so it was a great thing to, you know, I had heard about Lindell years ago before he went to Iowa. Is that where he went?
Yeah, he was in Iowa. Yeah.
And so I remember hearing about him and kind of watching him in Iowa and being like, okay, this is great. But, you know, when you start to hear the personal stories and you hear this by interviewing them, you realize, like, this is a commitment not only by him, but his entire family, right? Everybody commits to this. Everybody has been all in for a long time. That is a lot. And you watch, and especially last year, everybody could tell, like, he is one step away from getting there, and he did it. Yeah. And he freaking did it.
Got a contract one way. He's not going these one ways.
That's right. It's the best. Yeah. And you think about how much time goes into that, how many years, how many basketball practices, how much commitment his parents made when he gets sent away and left just like so many sports. But that one was particular because there's not that many basketball players from out here. It's changing, you know.
It's coming up slowly.
It's coming up. Nate Darling's a great player. I mean, there's some sweet players. Watching Lindell and just seeing, you could tell by the end of the playoffs, those guys like him. There's a good vibe. They're coming off the big plays, and Giannis is going over and giving him a high five. And I'm like, oh, my God, that guy's from home.
Yeah.
Like, that guy's from here. And then I'm starting to see the Bucks promo stuff. They put out their media day like yesterday or 2 days ago.
Yes.
And he's one of the guys asked. And I'm like, he's in. Like, he's with the group. Not 12.
Yeah.
They interviewed 3 or 4 people to say what they did in the summer, and he's one of them. I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. So, I mean, that changes everything around here too, right?
And he knows that.
That's the best part. He knows that. It inspires a huge wave of greatness. It's what happened when the Raptors first moved to Toronto. Look how there was when we grew up, Rick Fox, like, there was no Canadians, and then the NBA were like not a thing, and then it boom. Now there's great Canadians, like tons, and now it's going to be Maritimers.
Yeah.
You know,
it's exciting.
It's so exciting.
It's a great time to be from this part of the world, I think, with the economy slowly rising, with the population slowly rising. I just think we've always flirted with the idea of maybe moving to Toronto one day, and the debate always comes into my head. But man,
Toronto's moving here, bro.
Exactly. We've had people that have, over the past 2 years, that worked at sports agencies in Toronto, move to Halifax and start a shop here. They're like, no, this is the place where you want to be. This is where you want to be right now. Well, one, no one can afford anything in Toronto, and two, you get way more bang for your buck here, and the talent is just undeniable here. Like the professional sports teams that are coming here, the concerts that are, it's just, I don't know. Entertainment in this part of the world, I just think it's very interesting to me.
We're in a great spot, and we can feel it. And it was been built by people who were here. Mm-hmm. You know, it's built by people like, you know, Lindell's parents and you know, the coaches, the early coaches of those people, and Classified's mentors like Joe Run, and everybody's got someone in their life that they grew up with that was like, yeah, we can do this. You can be a professional from here. That's very different than it was even 20, 30 years ago. It was an understanding that you had to go somewhere else. And more people are showing, no, you can actually do it. You know, Plaskett and Classified and so many different artists and so many people. And that's the idea. And that was part of the reason why I kind of wanted to move home, to be honest. It was like, you know, I wanted to be in Fredericton. And I part of it is I do want to be able to try to prove it's another challenge. Mm-hmm. Can I do this from a town like Fredericton? It's more out of the way, but it's my home. So let's do it.
Who was your, who was your guy? Who was your girl that you looked up to and go, well, okay, I can.
I think it was early, man. It was really early, and it was a band called Hot Toddy, and it was a guy named Tom Swift, who's here in town, and they were a trio. Tom Easley, who lives real close by, bass player, works at NSCC.
Okay.
And a guy named Joel LeBlanc. They were a trio, and then Fredericton. And I was probably 14 or 15, and they were good. They are still good. They're great musicians and great guys. And I remember watching them and being like, I want to do that. And they were the kind of people that were like, when I first wrote songs, they're like, let's hear the songs.
They wanted to listen to you.
They gave me that. And for me at that point, that was a huge audience. You know what I'm saying? That was that first bit. And then as your career moves, you have different mentors at different parts of your life. I learned tons I made a record with Joel. I learned tons from Joel. I learned tons from Classified. I learned tons hanging out with Afi, in Bahamas, and Jill Barber and Rose Cousins. And, there's a list of people that I consider colleagues, but I get so much from them, just in terms of advice and just inspiration. And it really, then you're part of a community. Then you're not by yourself. That changes everything.
That's a rewarding feeling, being part of the community.
Oh, man.
I remember when Global News called me for the first time to ask me something, and they were like, hey, we love what you do. And that felt so good, just like the media community kind of recognizing High Button Sports. It's like, oh, feels good.
Yeah,
we're kind of getting recognized a little bit for what we're doing. It's
You're part of something then. And then your struggles aren't necessarily only your own struggles.
Sure.
Then you can kind of do that. Then you can chat with other people, right?
You call them up. Hey, did you guys email this guy about media passes? Did you guys get accepted?
Yeah.
It's just nice to bounce things off people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what Halifax has had going for it for a long time in the music community.
Okay.
I think that was probably the best. That's why Classified and I met. That's honestly why I think that song exists, why those collaborations exist, is because it was a healthy place to be making music, and that there was enough cross-contamination between genres that I was hanging out with Classified, even though we were making very different types of music. There was an openness and an excitedness to just work with each other and try to build something from here. And so I think that's really, really special. And then there's other people, younger musicians, who are doing that even to a new level. Aquaculture, Lance Sampson, great musician. Really, really a great community-focused guy who's bringing in other people into what he's doing and saying, let's go. That has a huge impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I recognize that everywhere here. It's a great feeling.
Other
People are trying.
That's right. It's a great quality in I think in where we're from.
100%. I love the live performance of things, and obviously COVID you couldn't perform, but being able to perform live must have been exciting for the first time when COVID kind of shut down a little bit. Did you lose your edge at all performing live when you came right back into it?
I was like emotionally volatile, which I didn't expect.
Like you cried?
Yeah, like I got emotional on stage. It was weird. Yeah, no, I know. It's like,
that's not weird. It's just, I don't know.
No, it was weird on stage because I could feel it welling up, and then I couldn't really like shut it. It was weird. I was playing, so this was mid-pandemic. Like I live in New Brunswick, so like there were points at which I did a show in like last February. I think it was last February, where the entire country was shut down. The only place that wasn't shut down was like parts of New Brunswick, just because the numbers weren't that high in this particular part. So there I was going to like Perth, Andover, playing for a small group of people. Actually, it was pretty good, but they were all separated. And it was, I think, like I even called my agent. I was like, dude, I'm the only guy working in Canada. Like this will be the only weekend where I'm the highest paid artist on the roster. I'm usually right at the bottom. But that weekend, I was the only guy working in the whole country. And I did a number of weekends where I actually was like working in, because I play a lot in small communities. And it was just me, and it was, they could, space everybody out, and I could make it work. So I was doing it, and I liked it. I felt like people needed it, and it was safe and good.
Yeah.
But I remember getting back at it, and I was so grateful. There was a feeling of gratitude, but also just like you're kind of getting in touch with things that you just haven't gotten in touch with for a little while. You'll be telling a story or an emotional thing, and you're like, I'm not used to opening myself up in front of people. And it happened a couple times, or you just get, that was the thing that shocked me the most. And it happened twice where I just kind of like, I started crying on stage. And then I pulled myself together and everything was great. And I think actually, the audience kind of probably appreciated the fact that I was about as real as it could get. It's not like it affected the show in a negative way, but it was more that I didn't have that control that I usually would. I think it's because we were a bit raw at that point, raw emotionally during the pandemic. I mean, it was all raw.
Oh, you're pissed off.
There's a lot of emotions, a lot of emotions.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty, fear, whatever, like especially early on. I'm talking early on. As it rounded the corner, I was definitely, but when it was quite uncertain, I think there's just, you're raw and you've been with your, there's lots going on. So I think that was that was a real thing. And so, and you sense it in the audience. That's the other thing. Like you feel what the audience feels in a show, especially when it's intimate like that. And so you're looking around and you're going, yeah, I know this is like I'll be playing to seniors. I'm looking at in Perth Andover. I'm looking at a group of senior citizens in an area that is, rural, isolated. They haven't seen their families. Many of these people, I know, I'm looking at them and I'm going, you probably haven't seen your kids or your grandkids for a year. You haven't seen your friends. We haven't seen each other. We have not been connected. And this has brought us together for this one little moment. And you feel, you know what I'm saying? Like, what people are going through. You can see it in their eyes.
You can see the energy in the room.
And so you're feeling that with them. And I think it's one of the most magical things about playing music and doing those. So I'm so glad I did those shows. They were really meaningful shows. But they were intense emotionally in a certain way from both perspectives. But the laughs were big. And, the dips were big. And, you know what I'm saying? And it was just, everybody's heart was right there, and you could see it and feel it. And it's kind of amazing. It's kind of amazing. But now it's more like, it only took a couple shows to get right back into it. And it was a nice feeling to go, yeah, I know what this is. I know how to do this. I like
riding a bike.
Yeah, exactly. And just kind of recalibrating the confidence element and being like, you know what? This is what I do. I've done it now long enough. We can do this.
Yeah. How much time are we at?
58 minutes.
When I need a couple things from you.
Okay.
How old were you? 2003, 2004, 22?
Yeah, 23.
No,
yeah.
Okay, let's go younger. The 20-year-old that's just, how old are you when you finished college? Actually, probably 22.
Yeah, 21.
Okay,
yeah,
so let's go back. 21, 22. The 21, 22-year-old out there that was in the same boat as you. Look into maybe not just music, but just do what they want to do in life and not go a career maybe their parents want them or someone else wants them to do. What's your advice to that person?
I think about this a lot because I got kids now and I'm thinking about it. I think one thing is like to focus on what it is you want to do. Really think about what you want to do. And it's not just about thinking about what you want to do and being able to really clearly imagine it. It's really important to be able to visualize and imagine what it might look like, but then understand that it's going to be a lot of work. I think that's that. So it's like, maybe I'm like my dad, and then I'm kind of like, I'm not going to tell you just to follow your dreams. I'm going to tell you, follow your dreams and work your butt off. You know what I'm saying? And like, because it's hard. It's hard. There's a reason why these careers are different. There's a reason why these careers are different.
If it was easy, everyone would do it.
They're challenging, and they're challenging in different ways. And working your butt off doesn't necessarily mean just being out doing stuff all the time. Sometimes that means getting into meditation. Sometimes it means taking care of your body. Sometimes it means eating well. You know what I'm saying? Often it means all of those things, but more like it's going to take some focus. It's going to take hard work, and you're going to get setbacks. But if you're really committed to it, it's go for it, of course, because it sounds cheesy, but you only live once, man. You only live once. And if you learn how to work and you learn who you are as a person and you learn how to see things through and to move with confidence in the world and be open to criticism and open to other people and collaborate, those skills are not going to fail you. Your dream might change. You might not, maybe the thing that you end up at is not the same thing that you visualized when you're 20. But if you are honest with yourself and you move through those stages, I have full faith that those are all good steps, right? Yeah. Those are the steps that you make. You become a full, complete person by pursuing those things and taking it seriously and learning who you are and moving through the world in a certain way. So I think it's important to feel confident in that if this door closes, another will open because you've been really faithful to these core elements of what you are.
Mm-hmm. That's really good advice. I like the one where you said, like when you're 20 years old and you had the vision of what it's going to be. It's not going to turn out like that, but it could be similar, but just keep going. That's good advice.
I think it's very hard.
I thought this was just going to be a podcast, but then it's other things, it's just.
That's right.
That's
right.
You, yeah.
But you're working hard and you're showing up every day and you're keeping your mind open and you're keeping yourself fresh. And those are the things that are the things that, I would tell my 20-year-old self. It's like, no. Have confidence in these. You've got good abilities here. Let's go. And if you have a dream, you pursue it. but there's a lot you can't control. There's a lot, you for a 20-year-old who last year they had a pandemic for 2 years,
Toughest age to go through it.
I think so.
Oh.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
19, like you want to go to the bar. No,
well, that's it. Or you're a hockey player or a basketball player. I mean, those are huge years. Olympian.
That's another. Yeah, we didn't. Yeah.
Think about. They did manage to have them, but still, like you think about people who lost their Olympic year. That's a prime time. It's not like, So I think there's lots to think about. In terms of the things that you can't control, but at the same time, I think if you move through the world in a certain way, that the world will respond in kind. At least that's how I like to think, optimistically.
Well said. But before you go, you mentioned a bunch of things about your career that are really rewarding to you: performing in front of a live audience, being able to write a song, getting an award, having other people recognize your work. Out of everything that we talked about for this past hour, what do you think is the most rewarding part of your career?
I think that this idea of actually proving, even almost myself wrong. Like, I think the idea of being a dad with 2 kids in a town like Fredericton with a great relationship, and that felt unlikely. Like, that felt not unlikely, but difficult. That was the thing I thought I might have to sacrifice if I was going to play music. And ultimately, I've always tried to go for this world where I still get to make music with my friends. I still get to do this, but I don't live by myself
in LA,
in a tiny apartment where I'm that's just not my speed. I want to walk in the woods every day. I want to walk my kids to school. I want to see my wife every day. I want to have a good relationship with my wife. That's to me, that's the thing that makes me most proud. It's like, you kidding me? I'm 41 now. It's been 20 years that I've been like pulling this off as like
pulling it
off. It feels like a ruse.
You're just tricking everyone. Yeah.
I'm tricking everyone because it feels like an unlikely way to have a career. Most people do it this way. And I've kind of been convinced that like it was the right dedication. I might be able to do this. And I keep on making steps in that direction. And so it's really rewarding. And I want to show to my kids, like, there are different ways to do this. Everybody will tell you there's one way to get there. You got to do this, this, and this. There's different ways. You need to define your own future. You need to define the path. You need to do that yourself. And that means saying no to certain things and saying yes to other things and making your choices. But ultimately, if you get to do the thing you want to do every day, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. David, you're the man. That was, I'm not going to lie, I was not expecting you to come in here and have all these stories. I thought I was going to have to beat them out of you.
Sorry,
like, no, dude, like, you made my job easy. Man, that was a great episode. That was a great podcast. I really appreciate you coming on, and I think a lot of people in the younger generation can learn from you. You're wise, well spoken.
Right on, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, nice to do this. I love your podcast.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate it. And I love that you geeked out when you came here and you had to take a look at some of the
stuff.
Not a lot of people, like, I don't know, just not a lot of people understand it. So, like, it's just nice when you have, like, a fan that, like, kind of wants to know the technical side of things. I love that stuff. So to talk about it.
I know how much work goes into building this kind of thing from the ground up, man. So, respect.
Appreciate
Seriously.
it, man.
Yeah.
You're the man.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. Everyone listening, so it's going to be Wednesday tomorrow. So I'll pretend like it is Wednesday. So today's Wednesday, hump day, work hard, have fun. That's all I got to say. Enjoy the rest of the week. We will see you guys later. Peace.